live with Chris Connor, in space with Chris Connor. Um, Man, thank you for all the people that end up pulling up here. I just like anybody else and most people growing up where I did. Madden, Madden was everything, man. Like the days of going to people's houses and disrespecting an entire household with one team, they don't exist in the same way because you could do it online, but one way or another, it still matters, right? So, um, as always, though things have changed a little bit. Anytime Madden ratings come out, there's always a bunch of outrage one way or another. And I thought it was a perfect time to really talk about it and get people that really know both sides of this equation all on one show so we can have a little, we can have a nice little discussion. Probably gonna run this for about 20 minutes, but don't hold me to that. And with that, man, let's get to the people that I'm happy that we're able to come here. Y'all know Lito, also known as Alvin Kamara's attorney. What's up, bro?
That's all good. Happy to be here.
All right, man. Now joining outside, man. This is my first time talking with both these people in person. So my first dog here is Eric Rayweather. If y'all don't know, this dude has about over 400,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube. Does a lot of Madden content. I will at some point we'll post a link to you can find his channel. And I mean anything in regards to Madden, you gotta follow dude. I told him that before I knew who he was, I knew who he was just off the Madden, just off of what he was putting out with Madden. And then I found out he was a New Orleans fan, and bro been in damn near when before Spaces was anything. He was one of the first people up there. So shout out Eric. What's up with you, bro?
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I mean, just been doing Madden for a few years. It was always my favorite game, and then of course, diehard Saints fan, Pelicans fan. That's why I pull up to the Spaces. So we got a lot in common, for sure,
man. And also repping Buku. My first time kicking it with Chris. I think we've exchanged messages over time here, man. But my dog Chris Rose with glue. And you know what, Chris, I know that on every show. And I know you run straight up Saints, which y'all definitely gotta tap in for all your Saints news, bro. Every show I've listened to you be a part of, they ask you how to say your name, how to say your last name. I say Rose Voglu. Did I get that right?
You did get it right. And honestly, I don't even mind when people get it wrong. I mean, there's like a couple that are crazy. Like I've gotten like. Someone called me Roz Vosgov, and I'm like, I don't know how I got there, but yeah, Rose Voglu, Roz Voglu, I take whatever. Like I'm cool with whatever.
Appreciate it, man. So y'all see if y'all here by now, y'all know exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about Saints Madden ratings. There were some that have been released throughout the week. There, I saw there's some good parts here, right? There's Demario Davis being second, I believe, at the linebacker position. Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Nope, you're right.
Mike Thomas, if I'm right, made top 10. I think he was number 10, or he was tied for 10 in the wide receiver department, somewhere around there. And then, yeah, I mean, I think, Marshawn Lattimore, he was top 10 as well, or top 7, top 8.
I don't think they released cornerbacks yet.
Okay. Okay. All right. So but the reason we're here is because we want to talk about those that were disrespected, and I think that Eric is gonna kind of help me a little bit with this, and then Rose, I'm gonna go to you from the straight football Saints side on it, and Lito gonna be all over the place because that's what my brother does. He's very good at fitting in when he can. But Eric, what I'm curious about here, man. First off, can you go into, right? Because we look at these ratings, and like for Alvin Kamara's perspective, like I think he was number 7 or number 8, or he was outside the top 5, right?
Yeah, 7.
Right. And running back rating, he's 90. But a guy like Christian McCaffrey is 90. Is not only 96, but he's top 3. How does with all the analytics and all the stuff that's put into this, and you look at player availability, and not saying Alvin hasn't missed time, with injuries here and there, but he hasn't missed as many as Christian has in regards to being banged up. And even when they're both healthy, bar for bar, there's an argument about who's better. From what you know about how the game is set up, what happened or what goes into such like a rating discrepancy that's that big with two guys that when they're both on the field, if they're healthy, you could, it's a pick 'em. And for some people, it's not even a debate.
Right. I think, well, so I know the guys that do the rating, so like there is a lot that goes into it. And a lot of people don't think they're like, oh, they're lazy and they kind of just throw numbers out. And I think it's the other side. I think they try almost too hard, and that's where you get things that don't make sense. And they're inconsistent with some things. And people that watch me know I gripe about this every year. They drop a lot of players when they miss time for some reason, but they'll say that they don't typically ding a player for missing time, but they do. We've seen them do it. They do it with Mike. They've done it with Mike a ton. They've done it with like Saquon Barkley, for example. They do it with most players. If they miss a whole season, like they'll go down a couple points despite not playing. They don't ever do it with McCaffrey for some reason. And I don't know why. And I've told him that. And I talked to one of the ratings guys I actually talked to a lot. And I don't know. There's just some inconsistencies. And I think when you're ranking anything, whether you're a player, analyst, whoever, naturally some bias comes into it, even if you don't intend it to. Like some people just value certain skill sets over others, or certain things a player might do, or they might just favor a player and they might give them a little bit of they'll give them some leeway because maybe a situation isn't good. But whereas another player, like they have to like well overperform to get the same respect. Like, and people that know Madden know there's certain guys that just don't get the respect for some reason. Like they have to do twice as much to get the respect. Like TJ Watt's one of those guys. Derrick Henry's been one of those guys. Lattimore's been one of those guys. Like Darius Slay. Like there's a few names that people notoriously know like are just always underrated, and they have to put together 5 great games to go up one. They have one bad game and they come right back down one. Whereas other players can have a few bad games and like they don't really move. So I think there's some bias that goes into it, even if it's not intentional. But I think that's anybody that's ranking players,
So now, Chris, I want to pass it to you here. When you see a list like this and you see 6 running backs ahead of Alvin Kamara, what jumps out to you first?
Yeah, I mean, kind of piggybacking off what Eric said, the biggest thing for me for the McCaffrey problem is it's not just 1 year. Like, I actually would have been cool if McCaffrey only got hurt last year and they were like, hey, maybe it was a fluke injury or it happens, and we just go off the season where he had over 2,000 scrimmage yards. That's cool, but that was in 2019. In the last 2 years combined, he's played just 10 games. That's just not cutting it. So that's someone who, for me, it's not only him being ranked over Kamara that's a problem. He's ranked over guys like Jonathan Taylor, who arguably was the best running back in the NFL last year. That I don't agree with. I don't agree with him being ranked over Dalvin Cook at this point because Dalvin Cook's been more durable. But it's not just a McCaffrey issue. No disrespect to Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon's an excellent running back. But outside of this past season, and part of it's because Kamara did miss time because of injury, Joe Mixon's never really been the better running back. And even then, I don't know if I would say he is the better running back. He's still a very good running back, deserves a spot in the top 10. But Kamara, I thought, should have been over Mixon. I also would have had him over McCaffrey because, again, availability is a really big ability when you're ranking players. And Kamara, for the most part, he has played. And even years where he doesn't look great, it's because he's playing through injuries. I remember a couple years ago, he was playing through a torn MCL, and his numbers didn't really look as great because of it, but he was on the field. So from a durability standpoint, I don't get it. And just overall, in terms of talent level, I don't get it because I think out of all these guys, I would put Derrick Henry over Kamara. I would put Jonathan Taylor if I'm going off last season over Kamara. And maybe I'd put Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook's a special player, but we get into this point where I can't say for sure that I'd rather have McCaffrey over Kamara. And when I put durability into question, then I definitely want AK. I would definitely rather have AK over Mixon because there are things that Kamara does as a receiver that I don't think Mixon can do. And that even goes into the Nick Chubb part where Nick Chubb, I think, is a better runner. But there's just something about Kamara when he's at the top of his game that he just does things that other players can't do. So I'm not saying that he needs to be in the top 3 and it's egregious that he's out of it. Absolutely not. But to say that he's 7 when I feel pretty good about him being minimum the 5th best running back, that's a little bit of a surprise to me.
So Lito, I'm about to go to you, and what I'm about to do is about to be fire, right? Because you are Alvin Kamara's attorney. But look how I'm about to swing this here. Speaking of attorneys, since we're talking about it, let's go with Birdsall Law. Okay. Presented the official attorneys of Buku Media seeking compensation for injuries. Give them a call 504-523-5413. Now, Lito is not he's not a member of Birdsall Law of any sort, but you do have a client that you're here to defend.
Yes, sir.
I am. Do you need me to put this list back up so you can tell me, objectively speaking?
Yeah.
Give me how many running backs do you believe in your heart of hearts are better than your client? Let me know if you need to put.
Can I have the list, sir?
Okay, I'm going to post it back up, sir.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna give y'all Derek Cook, and I'll give y'all Jonathan Taylor from last year. I'll give y'all those two.
So Dalvin Cook and Jonathan Taylor.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, continue.
I got a few problems with the list in general. Basically, my client being number 3, but I mean, guys, I'm gonna just go straight to my problem with McCaffrey being over him. I have a problem with the overall rating, agility, catch. Guys, they have him rated higher than Alvin on toughness. What are we talking about? How is this real? You know what I'm saying? I just believe. I know Eric has a relationship with the guys at Madden, but the files are there. The footage is there. If you gotta pull up the video, it's there. You know what I'm saying? Like Alvin, I think they even had him. No, Alvin is better than him in break tackle because I was about to lose my mind at that. So, but yeah, man, that's my problems with that.
Just to interject real quick, like the things like toughness and like injury rating, like those don't factor into the overall. And the overall formula is weird in Madden because it definitely does like favor certain players and others. And then there's certain archetypes within the overall. So like Kamara, I think is probably a receiving back, but there's other like certain archetypes get more of a boost for certain like in their overall based on certain ratings because it's just weighted a little differently. So like it's not the most consistent thing. Some people like McCaffrey gets like more of a boost than like Derrick Henry would, for example, because like I guess he does more things better, right? Because he can catch the ball and he can run routes. So, and he's a receiving back. So that makes his overall it's easier to get his overall higher than it is to get Derrick Henry's overall higher. So that is kind of part of the problem. But I'm like of the thought that you figure out how to get the number in a place where it makes sense. They always say don't look at the overall as much, but look more where they're placed in the group. So like the number is supposedly not as important as like where they rank, but even still, I think most of us agree Kamara is too low. Like I would put him above Mixon, and I love Mixon. Mixon's really one of my favorite running backs. I think he's like a top 5 talent, but he's just not always been healthy or in the best situation until last year. I think the tear Derrick Henry's on, like I can give it to Derrick Henry. He's just been on a crazy tear. Dalvin Cook's damn good. I think those two are debatable. I actually think Nick Chubb's better. I think Nick Chubb is a really good running back when you look at like just obviously he doesn't do as much in the receiving game, but as a pure runner and the way he breaks tackles and I don't know. I would do that. But when it comes to McCaffrey, it's mainly the injury thing, but I'm more of I wish they wouldn't drop anybody for being injured personally. That's my thing because I feel like they should be rated on who they were when they were last healthy. Now, if you miss 5 years in a row, that's different because like I don't like that they dropped Mike and some of the other guys because you can't tell me a healthy Mike is a 90 overall, 10th best receiver. If he's healthy, last time he was fully healthy, he was the best receiver in the league. So, but the thing is that they're not consistent. So either they need to drop them all or not drop any of them. And I think a healthy Kamara, you can debate a healthy McCaffrey, you could debate him and Kamara, like trying to be objective. Like, obviously, I'm taking Kamara, but, like McCaffrey is a bad man when he's healthy, too. So I would put him above Mixon. Outside of that, however you feel about the injury thing or not, I'm not like mad if you say some of the other guys are better because a lot of them are close, like if we're being honest,
I want to comment that former Saints legend Boston Scott has a higher change of direction rating than Alvin Kamara.
It is weird. He does weirdly have Kamara's change of direction. I thought was pretty low as well, which basically is like an elusiveness rating. So I don't get that either. That one was weird.
So that was one of the topics, right? But of course, the more interesting one, or at least from my perspective, based off of we know how this guy is, how impactful on the field, and how expressive he is online in regards to anything he doesn't agree with. But our favorite, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Now,
Too
better
low.
known as CD Deuce. He's rated as an 82. Now, before I go into some of these other safeties that are up here, the one who leads the list is also a member of the Saints, have to sign this year, the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. So we have to give some love there as well. So CD commented, or he quote tweeted the overall release. Just and this was specifically strong safety. So I do want to clarify that.
Mm.
CD said that he should be ranked higher. He covers better than any safety on this list. I'm gonna put this list right. Matt, I totally understand. So Chris, I want to start with you. You don't necessarily have to agree with the list, but I feel like, for him to be ranked, like what do you think the disconnect is, right? Because when you look at a lot of the deeper numbers, especially for what he can do on a slide, and how important he is to the team, and a lot of the different things that people around him or people around the league will say about him. Do you think that rating is too low? And when I pull up this list of some of the safeties that are ahead of him, what comes out or what points out to you as to why he's rated, far out of the top 10 just in strong safeties alone?
Yeah, for me, looking at the list for safeties, it's kind of all over the place. I do think he is rated too low. I don't think it's like so low where I think it's utterly egregious, but I think with the way he's played the last 2 years, specifically last season when he was healthy, I'd imagine that's a guy that has to be at least around an 85. I feel like that's a fair rating for him, because people, and I say this all the time, I almost think that CD Deuce is such a good trash talker that we stop talking about how good of a football player he is, and there's almost so much talk about what he brings to the table from the mental aspect of getting in the opponent's head. And the reason I say that is I have friends who aren't Saints fans, and they'll watch the game and they'll see 22 come across the screen. They're like, oh, that's the guy that people want to get in fights with, right? I'm like, yeah, that is true, but he's also a really, really good nickel corner, and he's a guy who could also play safety, and he's just a really talented football player. So I do think he is rated low. But for me, and Eric would probably know better in terms of how Madden kind of dictates who gets rated where, but I was almost as surprised that Tyrann Mathieu was ranked 1 on the list as I saw Speedies. Because, look, Tyrann Mathieu's still a really, really good football player. I want to make that very clear. I expect him to have a big impact on this team, both on the field, off the field. But I would never say he's the best safety in the league at this point in his career. I'm sure there were moments where I thought he was, and there are going to be moments this season where he's going to have a great play, and we're going to say that's the best safety in the league. I'm sure that'll happen. But I wouldn't have thought that. And it was just a weird list overall. Keeping it Saints themed, I saw when they were rating free safeties, I think Marcus Williams was around in the 80s. And I think Marcus Williams is a guy who at this point in his career, how can he not be a 90? He's established as one of the best kind of free range safeties who can get from point A to point B in great time. So that confused me for sure. And we're still valuing hard hitters. I've seen Jeremy Chin, who's a really good player. He's valued over Gardner-Johnson. I don't know if that's because he's a harder hitter than him. I have no clue. I see Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams, again, fun player, but he's not a good safety in terms of coverage. He's still in the 90s, no problem. And this is off a year where, he wasn't even the best safety on his team. Diggs is a much better safety right now, in my opinion, from a football standpoint, than Jamal Adams. So the whole list for me didn't really make sense. I wish I knew more in terms of how Madden dictates where guys go. But I do think that CD Deuce was underrated. And I do unfortunately think that CD Deuce, being such a good trash talker, takes away from the football skills.
So Eric, one of the things that jumps out with some of these guys, and in combination with Jeremy Chin, who's actually tied with Chauncey at an 82, he's tied with Justin Reed, he's tied with Kyle Duggar, and he's tied with Von Bell. Shout out to the former Saints. But there are guys like Jimmy Ward that are ahead of him, Adrian Amos, Jonathan Poyer. You spoke about Jamal Adams earlier. But Eric, what? How do we? I see a lot of guys that take away the football, and I'm asking this. I'm trying to make sense of where and why there's such a gap here. Mm-hmm. Not saying that Chauncey he deserves to be in the top 5 or. You know what I mean? Or he's a top 3 safety, but I think he's a lot better than where he's rated. And even if it still gets him outside the top 10. He's better than an 82, isn't he?
Yeah, this one's a little more complex. So number one, like I actually didn't mind the safety list overall too much outside of a few players like Marcus Williams. In my video today, I said that I was like, Marcus Williams, another guy always underrated in Madden. He's like mid 80s. I'm like, should at least be high 80s. I think he's proven it, like 88, 89, like borderline 90. He's that good, right? Like he said, Matthew, I was actually surprised. I think Matthew, I would still say top 3, but I personally think Derwin James is the best safety in the league right now. And I think like Justin Simmons is really close. Things like that. But with Chauncey, the thing that's kind of tricky is that he's listed as a safety in Madden, but we all know he's much more of a nickel.
Right.
Now, not to say he doesn't play snaps at safeties, and I don't know the true snap count, but I would imagine his snaps at nickel far outweigh his snaps at safety, right? And I even asked one of the ratings guys today because I was curious. I'm like, is that part of the reason that he kind of comes in a little bit lower? Because like he said, like 85, like we're not saying he needs to be a 90, but 85, 86 would seem more accurate. I was like, is the fact that he's listed as a safety still, because he technically is a safety, but he really plays more like a corner, is that kind of holding him back? And he said, to some degree it is, because he doesn't, again, because it's about the archetype and about the position that factors into the overall. And for a safety, especially a strong safety, things like, the strength and the hitting and the tackling and block shedding, that type of stuff factors a lot heavier into a safety, because most safeties, especially a strong safety, is typically a guy you rely on a little more in run support. They tackle, they can shed blocks better. CJ is not like one of those guys as much as he's more of a nickel. He's more of a cornerback. And so that kind of hurts. And if he actually was changed to a cornerback, his rating probably would jump up to like around that 85. And then also, the thing is like when you look at his actual coverage ratings, I think he's got 83 man, 85 zone, which Madden does consider to be a great coverage guy. Like, mid-tier cornerback ones, that's usually what they have, like mid 80s. It's only the elite guys that have like 90s in both. So for a safety, he's got one of the best man coverage ratings as a safety, even though 83 seems low for a safety, it's like 5th highest. Now zone, I think he might be like 15th highest, but we're talking about guys that are all within, from 5 to 15 are all within like 3 or 4 points of each other. So it's close. So his coverage ratings are actually good, but it just doesn't represent his overall. And I think it's partially because he's listed as a safety, but he really plays more like a cornerback in real life. So that kind of hurts him a little bit.
So Lito, if I remember correctly, Eric, once again, I'm leaning on you here. When you go inside the depth chart, I think now they have a slot cornerback like set up, right?
Right.
And I do think that this is probably a thing. If you have him rated as an 82, but let's say his slot cornerback rating is a lot higher. Let's say that's an 87 or an 88. Would that make you more comfortable about where he's rated, or it still doesn't make sense no matter how you slice it?
In 87 or 88?
Yeah. I'm just giving a number.
Man, I kind of think that 88 might be inflating him. I'm comfortable with him at being an 85, maybe 86, at the most. I think 88 is definitely overdoing it, and that's not a slight to him. Just based on how Eric is telling us the ratings go, I can't see it any other way.
And keep in mind, like if you're mid-8, like I know back in the day it might not have been this way, but as of the last few years, they kind of stretched out ratings a little more. Like if you're a mid-80s guy, you're considered like a great player. Like if you're 88 and above, you're kind of considered elite, which we don't look at that. We all look and say like, okay, if you're elite, you should be 90 plus. It just makes sense. Like that 90 to 99 is like that tier where you would say that makes sense where the elite would be. But I think they view more like 88 and above as elite. Low to mid-80s is a great player. Low 80s, high 70s is like an average player, maybe slightly above average. But I think we look at it as like, oh, mid 80s just means like he's not that good. He's okay, but he's not that great. But really, they view that as a great player. So it's kind of depends on how you perceive it. You know what I mean?
Lito, what do you in total think about Chauncey's rating? I mean, are we overdoing, the outrage in regards to where he's at, or based off of what Eric explained and some of the things that, that Rose talked about? Do you agree? Or do you think that he should at worst be an 85? Like where do you think the sweet spot is for him right now at this point in his career?
I think they do have it wrong. I think they have it wrong. He's low, but I don't think it's that egregious. I think, like I said, I think an 85 would probably do him justice. I looked at his stats as far as like game rating wise. I mean, he's an 87 in play coverage, he's an 83 in man coverage, and he's an 85 in zone. And that's pretty good. As Eric was saying, that 80 mid 80s is elite. That's damn near elite.
Yeah, he's considered like by Madden rating terms, he's considered a great coverage guy. But the problem is if you actually play Madden, like a lot of that stuff doesn't matter that much. Like, speed dominates Madden. Certain routes, it don't matter if you have 99 man. Certain routes are going to still cook it because certain routes are just kind of glitchy, and that's how the game goes. So like, he's actually considered great in certain things, and I would say really good in other things by his ratings. But it doesn't mean he's going to necessarily play great in the game. That's how Madden is, unfortunately. But
So Rose, I'm gonna ask you this question, and and we'll wrap up. Um, we made a lot of where AK and where Chauncey is at, but um, you know, it's funny to me how naturally, and I do this as well. I give negative shit so much more attention, but I have been banging on a drum for Demario Davis to get more recognition, and be like when we're talking about elite linebackers, and Madden did it right. He's a 93. I think that ranked him second. In his class, right? That's not nothing to really to sneeze at. He's ahead of a lot of really good players, and we're talking about a guy. I think DeMar's 33 now. Um, you know, Tell me from a football perspective, when you see that ad, right? That's one of the situations where, okay, I know that my eyes are not lying to me, and someone else is seeing it along with all of the other traits that go into these things. When you see DeMario as a 93 and being number two at that position, we talked about the negatives, but what did you think from that side of things?
No, I mean, it was great. And it's one of those rare occasions that DeMario gets the attention he deserves. Like, there are some analysts out there that do that. Like Brian Baldinger from NFL Network, when he does his breakdowns, he's always raving about DeMario, and Saints fans love that. But, outside of that, like any of the national media guys, and I know they have to like kind of plug certain teams, and there's certain players that kind of, generate clicks more than others. And DeMario is such a, good guy, and you're never going to get anything controversial out of him that the media probably doesn't find him intriguing enough to really hype up. But he's been at the minimum a top 3 linebacker the last couple of seasons. Like, he's been that good. So to see him get that recognition, I was very happy for him. And just weirdly enough, we kind of talked about things that we thought were maybe misses for Madden. The linebacker group I was actually impressed with, because Demario Davis wasn't the only guy that got recognition that I didn't think he would, but actually did. Devondre Campbell from Green Bay, this is a player who I thought was excellent last year. Not many people knew about, and I saw him on the top 10. I was like, okay, that actually makes me happy. So for Campbell, especially for DeMario, to see players like that ball out and actually get the attention is great. He's been an all-pro basically the last couple of years for the Saints. He continues to be the leader and the heart of that defense. So, I mean, there's not, I almost run out of good things to say about DeMario Davis, but to see him get that recognition is nice. I almost wish that would kind of be a stepping form and kind of a platform for people to just kind of build on that now, because I remember when, and I'm not trying to rip the guy, but I remember when Bobby Wagner was a free agent, there was all this talk about where'd he go. And I think Bobby Wagner is a future Hall of Famer. He's a great player, and he's still a good player right now. But people were talking about him and basically saying how he's still like maybe the top linebacker in the league. I'm like, no disrespect. Like, he's not even on DeMario's level. And DeMario, for me, it's a rare class. There's guys like him, Darius Leonard, Fred Warner. That's kind of like my 3 that I love right now in terms of what they bring. So to see him up there and see him second, pretty damn good. So I was very pleased with that.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna let y'all get out of here, man. I am going to ask you guys selectively what you're working on one by one, but I also want to know the first Madden that you played. For me, it was 95. Lito?
Man,
Oh, I was on Madden from the jump. I'm 92. I was home. I was there when the ambulance was coming out on the field. You said what are we working on? What are we working on?
Bro.
Man, pretty much everything, man. Trying to knock these pods out with you. we working. Me and Chad's working. I'm writing. Waiting on Five to get back off of off of injury
Yeah,
and injury reserve, and we just working, man, pumping pods and talking music, doing everything.
pumping pies. All right, Eric, man.
First Madden was '01, but in the '90s, I played Game Day for whatever reason. I don't know why. Like 98,
Better game.
99, 2000. I played Game Day. I don't know what it was, but '01 is when I transitioned to Madden. Working on right now just the channel. Madden 23 drops in like I think about 3 weeks, so it's gonna be heavy content coming for the next like six to 8 weeks. And when we're done, I got a quick question for you guys.
Okay, no, got you. Rose, go ahead, brother.
For me, I'm kind of late to the party here. Madden 03 for me, but yeah, just getting ready for training camp. It's next week when it officially starts, so I'm excited for that. I'll definitely have stuff going on the podcast for Straight Up Saints for Boot Crew Media. Obviously my other work as well, but it's getting into that mode where I'll probably be tweeting like a madman from now until hopefully February, depending on when the season ends for the Saints. So I'm just getting myself excited for that, and obviously I'm pumped to have those interactions again with New Orleans sports community. It's really the best. I mean, I know you guys know from Pelicans just how awesome it gets. So while you guys are all kind of getting hyped over free agency, draft, stuff like that, I was sitting here just rubbing my hands, getting ready and waiting for football so I could get back into it.
Oh man, well, listen, man, I appreciate you guys all taking times out of your busy schedule to pull up with your boy. Everybody who tuned into the live space, man, y'all subscribe. Check out with every single from Eric to Rose to Lito, and I mean anybody who got something nice or dope to put out, man. Support each other, man. Anybody that's doing anything New Orleans related, but appreciate y'all pulling up in space. We out. Eric, what you got, bro?